You're listening to Greetings from Austin. I'm Alisa.
And I'm Jenny.
We're here to share all things lifestyle, real estate, design, and more.
As Austin natives and agents with combined 28 years experience, we're excited to bring you new episodes weekly.
Thanks for joining us today. Hi, Jenny.
Hey, Lisa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. So today we're going over what you need to know when buying land to build a house. And Jenny is the expert here. She is a builder and has done this a lot of times. So we're going to pick her brain today and learn a little bit about how to find the right piece of land for the house you want to build. So first off, will you tell us what do you need to look for when you want to build a house on land in an unincorporated area?
Yeah, I figured today we would go over when you're not in any city and you have limited restrictions, and then we can do another one based on a build that I have in a city because they are very different animals. So say you're looking for land to build a house on, and today I wanted to base it on my experience. We had been looking for land for years. My husband wanted further out land. I wanted closer in, but we ended up buying in Dripping Springs, 7.5 acres, and it's about 45 minutes from Austin, and we found unrestricted land that's not in an HOA. A lot of the land in Dripping is in some sort of HOA. Okay, I can't say a lot, but there are quite a few that have been re-subdivided, and then they're in some sort of neighborhood, and they may still not have very many restrictions, but I wanted the least restricted land, but I still wanted pretty land. So today we're just going to go over the process. I am a builder. I am also the owner. So I'm speaking from that experience. The audience is probably a lot of people that, will have to go find a builder. Yeah. But, just wanted to go over our experiences and just kind of help teach. I mean, I definitely don't know everything. Everyone needs to do their own research, but just to touch on how the process works and the things you need to do.
Yeah, how to get started. I think something else to mention about Dripping Springs area, there are a lot of neighborhoods that have like a handful of custom builders that are approved for the neighborhood. So I've helped clients look for land in the area before, and that was always an issue. Like, they're a custom builder, they're not approved to build in these neighborhoods, so then it wasn't an option for them. But if you are out there looking for land and want to build, it could make it a little easier. You have a list of builders to start with, and then you reach out to those.
And sometimes when you're looking
builders
for lands or lot, that land or lot is tied to the builder. You have to build through them. So and they might already have plans on this particular plot of land. It was a builder, realtor couple, and they were going to build a spec on this land. But they were open to selling to anyone too. So they were offering to build a house or offering us just vacant land. And I wanted just the vacant land. Okay. Yeah. The style of the house that they had was, I don't know, they had elevations. I don't know if they had floor plans, but it wasn't my style at all. So, and I knew I'd be the builder. So I wanted to start from scratch on plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, go ahead, cut that out.
Okay. So next up, what information do you need when you're interested in a piece of property, like documents, that sort of thing?
So first and foremost, you should get a copy of the restrictions and know what the rules and regulations are in those. Read them. Sometimes they can be sort of long, but out on land, they're not typically that awful. Yeah.
On deed restrictions?
Yes, just any restrictions for that land. Like what we found, we looked for years and years for land. And what we found is, we looked far away. I would say a good hour and a half, 2 hours. We were looking all over, and it was amazing to us at how many restrictions were on these plots of land. And what had happened is these homeowners used to own all this acreage, and then they decided to re-subdivide it off to make money, but they still lived on some of it. So they were still just heavily restricted lots. Like I remember reading, or pieces of land, I remember reading one set of restrictions, and it talked about how you couldn't have a dog unless you had a fence. And then you couldn't have this sort of animal, but you could have this sort of animal. Like it felt really odd to me that we're looking to have a house on acreage where we wanted to get away from rules and have privacy. I found it really odd that so many restrictions, were placed on these lots.
Yeah. So
several that we found. And we also were looking for land in Colorado, and I found it crazy. Like the short-term rentals is a big thing there that you can't, that's in a lot of restrictions, especially if there's an HOA.
Yeah.
But I knew that I want to do amazing things to the property, but I didn't want any rules on being able to short-term rent it. That was sort of the biggest thing. But also I didn't want to have rules on trees or doing the improvements I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have plenty of that on your other bills.
Exactly. And I guess that's where my history is coming from. I've built in some very restrictive areas that, it makes me upset when you spend so much money,
Yeah.
but a city can really get in your business about what you can and can't do.
Yeah. It's frustrating. Okay. So next up, what are the first things you need to do when you find the land that you want to buy?
Yeah. So when you've finally narrowed down and you've read the restrictions and you know that you can deal with what they are and you're good with that, go ahead and make your offer. Hopefully you get under contract. I know in our experience, we made an offer, and we put in a really long option period. I can't remember. Well, the most recent land we did, I know we did 30 days. But I was already pretty familiar with that land. But this one, I think we did less. But you need to give yourself plenty of time. And I just do it in a form of an option period. So it's just simple. But you'll need to be able to get your survey back. And I know that there's, it's written in the contract about the surveys. But I really just like as much as possible to be under the option period because it's just cleaner that way. You don't have to say, oh, because of this on the survey, I don't want this anymore. So you really need that due diligence time to order the survey and just, I know that there was a building moratorium that in Dripping Springs, and I do think my property would have been affected, but a few months, maybe a month or two right after we got the permit, they put a building moratorium on Dripping Springs. And I didn't research. I saw it in the paper, in the Dripping paper. And I think it went on for a long time. So I think I didn't do all the research to see if my land exactly would have been affected. And I don't know what it was all about. It may have been over like city sewer or something like that. So maybe septics weren't a part of it. I'm not sure, but that would not have been good to be a part of any building moratorium. And it was long, which means you can't build. So we would have been paying on a piece of land that we couldn't do anything on. So that for a while, but they have lifted since then. And I had already gotten all my permits, so I was able to get moving. So
maybe make sure that there's not something like that in place.
Exactly.
Currently.
Yes.
Of course, you can't control what happens after, but it would be nice to know before.
Yeah.
If it was an issue.
Yeah. So go ahead and get that survey ordered. You want to get that back as soon as possible. And with the survey, we already knew where we wanted to put the house. We had a good idea. It's a pretty, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer of where to put the house. On the land, because there's this high point that we decided to build on, and you'll want to get the topography on the survey of where you want to build, and then the tree survey. So anywhere we were going to develop, we wanted topo and tree, and then wherever the septic's going to go and the drain field, you want the topography of that area too. And it's hard to know where that's going to be, so you might want to talk to the septic designer or the builder before you decide where. Definitely before you decide where the topo and the tree survey need to be. That's a discussion you need to meet with the builder and decide all of those things. before going forward with the survey. And then also make sure that you've ordered the title policy. That Schedule A and B lists off a bunch of restrictions and what encroachments. So you'll want to have that information so that the survey is the most accurate. And then so once the survey is back, you want to see if there are any encroachments or what the setbacks are, what any drainage easements are. And you also want to look into if there's a floodplain. If you could try to get that information up front, that would be best, but it's not always available. So when you are interested, you want to make the offer, try to get whatever they have first. I know on this land in particular, there was a survey, but it was not comprehensive of this lot. It was several lots together. So we had to go and get our own survey. And I didn't end up working with a surveyor that had already done. I already had a relationship. So I started over. It's a long relationship with a survey company and a build. So I wanted to work with mine from the start.
Okay. And for the floodplain, you could look this up on the FEMA map, but it probably should be part of your research, especially if your property is at all in the floodplain that you're considering, because then that would need to come in with the survey and figuring out placement of property. It's just
right. I mean, a lot of land does have floodplains, and definitely drainage easements, if you're on acreage, but yeah, you just need to make sure that you're staying away from those in your build site. Again, this is a pretty easy one because it is the highest point.
Yeah.
For a while, which higher points definitely allow for better views.
Yes, they do. They're so beautiful.
But when you build on kind of a hill, the foundation gets more expensive too. So there's trade-offs, but very well worth it.
Yeah. So a lot to chat with a builder about. If you're going through this process and you aren't sure about the numbers and how the build site might affect that, then
it's so hard. I mean, I know from experience with this. We went in to get the bid on the foundation. I expected it to be a certain number, and the engineer heavily engineered this foundation because we were on the hill. So it cost a lot more than I expected. So it was, and even the foundation guy said that it's just way over engineered. It didn't need to be this crazy, but
yeah.
My structural engineer suggested it, or not suggested it. He put it on. He said that's how I had to do it. So that's what I did.
Sometimes better safe than sorry, right?
I guess, but yeah, it was double.
Yeah.
It was I thought it would be a $70,000 foundation, and it was $140,000.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up there in some parts.
Well, but it's also much thicker. I want to say we did 6 inches of concrete, which is much thicker than a normal foundation.
Yeah.
On the top layer, and bigger beams, and it's a very souped up foundation. So one thing before the engineer designs the foundation, you need to do a soils test. We did do soils tests out here, and then they engineered off that as well. So it had to do with soils test and the fact that it's on a hill. Okay.
And you need a soil test for a septic also?
The septic designer will come out and do their own.
Okay.
My septic designer has his own equipment that he'll bring out. I don't know if it's a skid steer or a mini excavator, but they just dig down. And I've never been here when they actually do it. I see the test holes. But yeah, they see what kind of dirt it is and how it's going to absorb in the water and from the drain field. And I think they decide like what I can't remember, it's level 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that, what caliber of soil, and then that's how they design the drain field.
Okay.
And how big it will need to be.
Per the house and all of that.
Yeah. But it has to do with the soil it's in as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So if it's really rocky or if it's very clay is not good.
So you have to make the drain field bigger.
Yeah. Or they make you add a certain amount of topsoil if it's really rocky. It can't be on too much of an incline. It has to have a certain amount of slope or less.
Okay. So all things that, again, your builder will be working on with you if you are building a house. Okay, so next up, what sort of financing do you get when you build a home?
So what I recommend, if you can, is to buy the lot cash if you can, and then get a loan on the construction project. But if you can't do that, on this land in particular, I got a construction loan on the whole thing. It's just much more stressful. You could buy the land separate with a loan, and then get the construction loan separate. But I wanted to do it all in one, and that is a hard way to do it because the lender requires plans.
Yes.
And that is really hard to make all of the timing work on that. My architect, he's amazing, but I really pushed him hard to get that done. I can't say that that's achievable. Definitely, I've worked with other architects that never would have been able to do it. So I want to say we closed in 45 days, but I had already built a house that I sort of copied some things. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I had already worked with this architect. So I know there are spec builders that like have plans already in mind, and they kind of reuse and tweak a bit. So that's easier to get these construction loans. So you can get a construction loan, and then they're generally 12 months to 18 months. Definitely try to get the 18 months because it's really hard to build in a year. Or there's construction to permanent financing. And that's where it's just one lender. I believe it's one. I've never done construction to perm, but I know if you're for sure going to live there, that is, I don't know why I didn't do that, but that is the best way to go. But definitely, research the different options. The thing about if they can lock your rate on the construction to perm, that would be pretty amazing. Whereas, if you get a construction loan, and you refinance, you're caught at the end at whatever rates are. I know I was really scared about what rates were going to be because I felt they were going to go up. And I had sort of heard about locking in a rate for 6 months, and I researched and I found a bank that would do it, and I did have to pay for it, but it turned out it was well worth it to lock a rate for 6 months. Rates, they didn't quite double during that time, but they went up like 2 to 2.5%, and it was a good size loan, so it would have made a big difference in the mortgage. Yeah.
Important things to think about.
Yeah. So as far as like what plans you need, the floor plan or the architectural plans, the bank I dealt with, and I think a lot of banks are this way, just require the floor plan and the elevation. They want to know, and then like a spec sheet, they want to know what the house is going to look like, how big it's going to be, kind of the layout, and then what sort of finishes are you going to put in it. So after it's schematics, the architect then works on the actual construction plans, and the bank did not require those. So I was able to get those in much sooner, because had they required the full set of, all the dimensions and everything, it would have taken even longer.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure it varies per lender and what they require. It oftentimes does, just depending on the type of loan.
Yeah.
Who's backing it, right?
Yeah, true.
I think it's important to mention too that like not every lender will do a construction loan, so you kind of have to do a little bit more research. If you're working with an agent, which of course we recommend you do, then a lot of times they could give you some names and a starting place for finding.
Yeah, it's more the banks. And I'm not talking the big banks, but I worked with a small bank. I think they're based out of Fredericksburg. South Texas. They would be mad at me.
South Star?
No. SBBT. SSBT. I don't know why I have a brain block. They were amazing. They'd be mad, but yeah, I've worked with several more local banks. I've done independent bank and prosperity. But yeah, not your normal mortgage broker does these type of loans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you look for when you get the survey back?
So, make sure the square footage matches, what is being marketed and what is on the tax records. See where the setbacks are, where the utility easements are. Just make sure that works with your plans. On unrestricted land, it's pretty, usually there's not much of these things, and setbacks aren't.
Encroachments.
Okay. Well, the funny thing is that, when you're doing land, you're also probably not getting every single improvement. And we just found out after we've owned this land for 2 years now that we're putting up a fence, and we had them do points of line all the way along the property line. And we did find out that the neighbor, which is a farm, has their road encroaching into our land. So that's interesting.
And then on the other side, you have a fence encroaching your land, which you're dealing with that. But
oh yeah, the back neighbor. Yeah, they put their fence 14 feet onto our property. Yeah.
So just making sure everything's where it should be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That road. Yeah. I mean, they probably should have been on there, but oh well. It was interesting when I told the owner. He was not being very cordial. And so I just wanted him to know that he was encroaching on my property because I wanted to just get back at him. But he's like, I didn't put that there. It's not my fault. I know it's not. That line's wrong. I mean, all these backpedaling and I was like, okay.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And then he was like, I have a survey and it's not on there. I have a survey and it's fine. It does not show that road. And then he showed it to me this morning. And I said, because you have no improvements on your survey, you only have boundary lines. It doesn't show the road. That's why you don't see the road encroaching on my property. Yeah. So I think he finally gets that I know what I'm talking about. And, I just wanted to make it clear. I don't care, but he needs to be cool with me.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Right. Because he's encroaching on your property.
Totally. I wanted to take a tree down for the fence, and he gave me a difficult time. But then, then he said, fine.
So at the end of the day,
well, he said no at first. And then he said, what compensation are you going to give me? And I said, nothing. Then,
well, don't forget to watch a road on my property.
Yeah.
And on another note, on the survey side of things, if you're building a house, surveys are really important. And we recently talked about surveys on another episode, so we're extra informed about this right now. But you could put your house in the wrong place if you don't have the right kind of survey. Like, there was a story of somebody putting their house on someone else's property, or half on someone else's property and then half on their own. So, things like that can happen. You think you understand the boundaries, but if you don't actually have the proper survey with the proper markings, it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah.
If you just have the corners marked, and especially if you're on land where, this is like 650 feet a run, some of the runs, there's no way, many times if there's trees, you can't see the other corner, but if you don't have a straight property line, then forget it. But even if you do, it's easy to get really turned around. Like, I was back there in the trees this morning with the neighbor, and I was like, I think we're at this corner, but I'm really turned around. We're at one of these corners. I don't know which one. And then you look, and it doesn't look like a straight line, but it is a straight line. So you look on the property and look through the trees and look at the stakes, and it does not look straight, but it is. So yeah. So it's and if you have not a square lot or a regular and not straight lines, then for sure you could get really turned around.
Yeah. So get the right stakes up, get the right survey.
Yeah. So that's to know the property boundary lines. But what they really should have done is done the building envelope. I don't know I think it was a mobile home was the story, but I don't know what they normally do for mobile homes, but I know when I'm about to put up a foundation, they do the building envelope. The survey company comes and they mark the corners of the building envelope so that the foundation guy can go off of those corners. And then once the forms are up, the survey company comes back again, not necessarily on land. I don't think I had him do a form survey. I can't remember. The main thing on a form survey is to make sure you're not over any setbacks or anything before you pour that foundation. And it is, I guess it would be good to know that they got all the lines right and everything before you build the house, but I don't know that it's completely necessary if you're not near any setbacks.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add to the survey portion?
So yeah, just make sure it has the trees marked that you wanted on there, and the topography in the right places. What I've done to show the surveyor where I want topography is I've come out to the property and I put markers in the form of stakes, or I recently found these like red little wire things that are pretty tall, because I was afraid they wouldn't be able to see anything low to the ground. But I put them on all the corners. I wanted topography inside all those corners. And then I did GPS points on my phone. You can use the compass and do GPS points. And I screenshot it and I sent pictures of screenshots of the GPS coordinates to them so they would know where to do the topo.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that trick.
Yeah. And that compass app on your phone is really amazing. It also shows elevation. It's not completely accurate. It's maybe accurate within 10 feet or so, but it's really cool. When you're on a lot, say it's like you're building for instance, my house in Westlake, I know the finished floor elevation, which is the top of the foundation, is at 814 feet. And then the pool is at 2 feet lower. And so it's when you're on land before you've started anything, it's just a cool marker to kind of know what you're at and then walk down the way and then know that, okay, that's 10 feet higher. I mean, it's very expensive equipment. Really gives you really detailed information, but it's just neat to see. Like my other, lot we're going to build on in Westlake is, it's on a hill. And so to see where the build site is, I go as a reference. Okay, we're around this and I'll know, okay, this is about where we're building.
Okay.
So
that's so interesting.
Yeah. My architect taught me that.
I love it. That's a good trick.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about utilities a little bit. I feel like I've had clients ask about buying a lot to build on, and this is always a big question because it's expensive and it depends on the area. But so will you tell us a little bit more about what you do with utilities and how do you get them established on the property?
So we were fortunate that there was a power pole on this property, and so that made that helped a lot. It seems like it'd be very expensive if the power pole was really far away, to bring it to the actual property. So we were fortunate. I've not had to do that. But as far as a well, it didn't have anything. It was just vacant land. I called a few well companies in the area and, just discussed, and I had never had a well or done a well, and, talked to a few people that had serviced neighbors and well guys, and said that there was plenty of water here, that I could do a test, to be sure. And maybe if I'm representing someone, maybe I will recommend that. But it was about $5,000, and we wanted the land, and we were just hoping there was water.
Yeah, so you don't have to do like a rainwater system or something creative.
Yeah, I mean, I think rainwater is really cool, but not in droughts.
No, which we do have here. So.
Yeah, well, this summer there was a drought, and all these people with rainwater had to get water trucked in because it got their tanks dried out. So, so we ended up digging a well, and everything worked out great. I don't remember. It was like 550 feet down. The one. I had never done a well before, so I didn't really know what to expect. But when they did the well, and then when I started getting towards the end, I had someone come and test the well water. And the thing is, he just said, there's no shortage of water here, but nobody wants this water.
Does anybody want any of the water around here? I don't.
No. This is the worst.
Oh, I don't think I've heard this story.
Yeah, he said it's the worst around. So
just hard.
Yeah. So hard, like here, and it starts kind of here and then up in Johnson City.
Okay. It's even worse.
I don't think it's like closer in dripping. I don't think it's on the same reservoir. But yeah, it was like 100 parts per million hard. It would have ruined everything in this, all the plumbing in this house. So my plumber, for instance, whenever you're building the house, they do the plumbing and then they pressurize it. They put water in it, just to make sure that while they're doing drywall and other things that nobody hits it, that you'll know that it'll come out if somebody hits a water line. So you feel it. And I just said, do not fill my plumbing with that water. And he did. Ginny, oh, it's fine. It's fine. I was like, but it's not. I don't think it is. And he's, no, it is. Well, when we went to go put the final trim on the plumbing and the showers and stuff, he opened up the valve and he could not believe what the water had already done to the valve. It had already the valve, it's like a brass valve, but it had already corroded the bottom a little bit, and it's fine. They had to go in and sand the valve down.
Oh my God.
I mean, and that's just a couple months of that water sitting there, and it's not like tons. It was just
wasn't water coming out all the time. Yeah,
there was no water coming out. It was just the same water. Imagine more water, I would think more hardness.
Yeah.
But so I talked to them, the water quality people, about water softeners, because that's how a lot of people treat their well water, and it's just so hard that wouldn't have been a good solution. So they had said the sodium would be so high in the water that it would be corrosive to my other appliances. And I have really nice stuff in here. Even if I wouldn't want to replace a dishwasher every year or two, but definitely not these dishwashers. But anyway, so he talked me into reverse osmosis water treatment, and now it's amazing water. It was expensive, but and it was complicated to figure out, but we did it, and it's great. Yeah.
So good things to know about the area that you're building if you're going to have to spend money on an additional system to make the water more livable. That could be important to know.
Yeah, we drink it, and I don't drink City of Austin water. I mean, we have a reverse osmosis under the sink at every house. So yeah, I'm pretty picky about the water, but
I am too. I don't have reverse osmosis on my well, but I do drink your well water. So
yeah. Yeah. And do you have the one under your sink, the reverse osmosis? Oh, they have them at Costco, and they work. I had the water tested. I had my water quality guy here. I brought water from my other house and had him test it.
Really?
Yeah. And he said
liked it?
It's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It works. So, I'm really happy with it. There's a few things to learn about it. For instance, I think I left water on the other day and it ran down the tank, and you can't have anything like a toilet leaking or it'll run down the tank. But so that's water. And then as far as power, it's Pert Ellis Electric out here, and so I was able to work with, it was a really great guy, just designing the system, and because the power line was there was no transformer. So they had to they needed to know about the house and what all power I needed. And then they designed the transformer, and we're very involved in the process of bringing, I paid for it, but I did an underground line to the house, and they inspected it every phase. It was wild. It was probably the most inspected item was that ditch and how everything was connected to the power. Yeah. But they were fast, and they were really great to work with. And then lastly, the sewer is septic. So as I was talking about earlier, the septic designer, you send the floor plan to them, and then they design how big of tanks you need and how big of drain field. They come and do their own test of the soil, and decide how big the drain field needs to be, and then they place it out on the site plan, and that's your sewer.
And if you happen to be in an area where you could tie into public utilities, a lot of times you're paying for the cost to tie in from the property to the street or wherever the closest utility tie-in is, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I feel like in this area, there are a lot of septics and a lot of wells, but there are a couple areas, I think, where they have neighborhoods with fewer restrictions, if not no restrictions, and you still might be able to build there and have city or public utilities. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we didn't look at a lot of other stuff in Dripping. I loved this land. Mm-hmm. So
even other areas around Austin too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And I had always tapped into, I've done several septics, but I've never had a well. So always had water to tap into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which can be nice, but okay. Last question, or second to last question. Will you tell us more about your agricultural exemptions?
Yeah, we were really fortunate that this property already had one on it. Uh-huh. So it was subdivided, re-subdivided, and the previous owner had made sure that it stayed, and they had bees on the property when we got here.
Okay,
and
wait. Will you first tell us what an agricultural exemption is? Because I have a funny feeling that there are people that probably really aren't going to know what that means.
Okay, well, all I know is that it's an exemption that you can have. I mean, a lot of people are familiar with it more for cows, but it just saves you money on your taxes. You're taxed very little on land that is under the agricultural exemption, and it is very hard to put into place. Mm-hmm. It takes about 5 years, and I think a lot of documentation. And so if a property has it already, it's very valuable. Mm-hmm. I did everything I could to keep it. And they had bees before, and then they took them before we closed, and I ended up putting bees back on the property, thinking that was what we were going to do. And then the person that I was working with just came and took them one day, and I didn't know why. And he said because of winter. Right. And then I never heard from him, and then it wasn't winter anymore. And I just figured he was not reliable. And I had worked with this company who helps you with ag exemptions, whether it be putting a new one on or keeping them, and it's plateau management. The previous realtor lives in Dripping, and she knows a ton about land, and she had helped me get in touch with these guys, and they helped me. They told me initially that this wildlife exemption is much easier to maintain than the ag exemption for the bees. So they had a biologist come out, meet with me, and suggest the activities that we needed to do to get that exemption. And we were able to successfully get that on the property. But then I ended up refinancing. I had the house in my business name when I was building it, but then I put it in my personal name. And so now I have to redo it again, but it won't be, I spent several $1,000s with getting the exemption, the wildlife all in place. But going forward, the activities are, there's some bird houses. So there's really not much to that. I just need documentation, and they come out and write, what they see. I have a feeder, for small animals. I don't know that the deer feeder classifies, but it's another feeder that I got through them. And then I give them, I have water. So it's a little rainwater collection system. It's a little shed with a tank, and then it's water for the animals. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think, I think I have owl boxes, songbird boxes. Taking cedar trees is an activity. So I had to show that I did that.
That you took them out?
Yes, because I think the animals, and they're not wanting, I don't think they're wanting you to take all the trees or anything, but maybe the animals can't get through the really dense stuff. I'm not real sure the reasoning behind that one, but I liked it.
Yeah, we don't love cedar trees here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it works for me. So yeah, but I want to say my tax bill was like $200 on this property. Now that there's a house on it, they will tax me on an acre, that acre where the house is, and it has to be a full acre. So we'll see.
Okay, so they changed the taxing on just the 1 acre, and it can't have the ag exemption on the 1 acre
that you live in, the house. Okay. The improvement, no.
Okay,
it has to be. It's my understanding it has to be vacant.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, my knowledge on agricultural exemptions isn't great. I do know a little bit about them, and I know when my family owned some land, it was like about 30 acres. We had a neighbor that had cows, and we were having his cows come onto our property to feed and pasture for a little bit so that we could get an exemption there.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's nice. You didn't even have to own the cows.
No, I don't want cows.
Yeah.
So the neighbor was like, well, I'll let my cows use your land. So
yeah, I'm just not a fan of cows. I never even considered cows because I don't like their poops. I think they poop so much and it's yucky, and I want to walk around the land, and I don't want to walk in that.
I too would rather have songbird houses.
You have to help the songbirds.
Yes.
They need help more than the cows.
That's right.
But I know we want to get a Polaris side by side, and I know I think we were in South Dakota. We were doing those razors, and I don't know if I told you the story, but we were on some land riding around the razor, and my husband ran over some cow poop, and it like splashed up on me. It was on my seatbelt. It was on my shirt. I was like, oh my God, this is so gross. And he was laughing, and then it happened to him. And I just was like, I don't know if we had this land yet or not, but I was like, I do not want cows. Do not.
It was ruined for you.
Well, that just really solidified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason as a kid, I liked cows. And then I remember the first time that my family, we grew up in the country, so we were around them. So my mom let me touch a cow, and it licked me, and I was like, no, I don't like them anymore. Like, their long tongues, and they're slimy. It's just kind of gross.
And stinky,
like
and
it.
lots of flies. But my friends have a place in Smithville, and they have a bunch of cows, and they've named like every one of them. And it is fun to go out there and feed the cows and pet them. And I mean, some of them are like pets and really cool. But again, just the cow patties, I can't do it.
Yeah. So my family also owns property in Llano area, like Fredericksburg. And for a long time, my uncle had a pet deer. And I think that was the most fun.
That's so neat.
Yes, we got to go out and it slept in his house.
What?
Yes, it was like very much.
Was it a baby when he got it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
His name was Elmer.
With a deer.
So we go out and see the cows and the emus and all their exotic animals, but Elmer was the best.
That's so neat. And so speaking of animals on land like this, we do see quite a few deer. We see fox. And just recently, I think it's kind of a new thing, but we have hogs around here, and they are multiplying pretty quickly. My neighbor,
right? They're dangerous.
Yeah, that's what someone was saying. So like,
you look like you don't know that they're dangerous.
Okay. Well, okay. Here's the thing. Are they going to be out during the day?
I mean, they could be. Sure.
Yeah.
They will chase you down.
Wow.
They will chase you down, and they are mean. They're very scary to me.
Okay.
I'm more scared of hogs than I am of snakes, if that tells you anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to talk about this. Anyways, so when we first bought the land, right where we're going to build, I saw some things had been dug up, and I wasn't sure if it was a possum, but it kind of was a good amount of dirt. So I thought it was hogs. And then all year while I was building, I mean, I didn't walk the land every day by any means. I barely walked the land, but I never saw anything that showed me, Then once, the house is done, I looked down a couple months ago and I saw some turned up dirt, and then I went down there and it was definitely hogs. And then I went up and talked to my neighbor up top, and he said, that he has a feeder and he has a game camera, and he takes pictures and he kills them, but he's not able to kill them fast enough. Yeah. They just had babies, like 9 babies.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, you need to be careful.
Okay.
Especially at night, but all the time. Okay. So last question about building, finding the right lot and building. What do you do right after closing?
So on this particular land, we closed in, I think, 45 days, something like that. But I wanted to get started. So I worked with the architect and, tried to finalize the plans. The plans changed a little bit from what we turned into the bank, actually, kind of a lot. The house got bigger, but
of course it did.
A lot bigger. I finished working on the plans and then wanted to get it in for permitting. And about that same time, we did a soils test. And then once we got the soils test back, we were able to have the foundation, the engineer the foundation. All that was working while we were at the county getting permitting. And once we got both of those, we started building the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all history.
All the little details of building the house.
That's
a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, it was a really great experience, and I learned a whole lot, and just about wells and land and the exemption. And yeah, I remember the bee guy. Oh my God, he would sit there and try to explain every detail to me. And I'm like, my brain can't take it right now. When I'm done with this house, like, you can sit down and tell me more, but I'm not taking care of them. I don't need to know right now. But yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's so many things I have to like save my brain for when people start getting too detailed. I'm like, okay, no, I don't have time to learn right now.
Yeah. Gotta save that energy.
Yeah. The water guy, oh my God, he's super engineer brain. And I mean, he's so knowledgeable and I love it, but I have a hard time retaining every single, he should be on a podcast.
Yeah. We'll have to write that down.
I know. Yeah, he was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so that's it. Yeah. So next one that I talk about building, it'll be very different.
Yes. More
discussion.
The restrictive side of things.
Yes.
And building in a city, and that's a whole nother situation. I know a lot of builders who won't build in areas that are inside of a city.
Yeah. I mean, I really won't build in city of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
There's even more red tape. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, like, I really love Westlake and I love Dripping now too, but I love the unincorporated areas of Westlake. I'm building in Westlake Hills right now, but I like if you can find the right piece of property. Mm-hmm. I think the unincorporated is the best.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, we hope that this was helpful and that you learned something. If you're planning to build a home and looking for a lot, I know it's a lot to get it. It's a big project and a big undertaking to find the right place. So
yeah,
we hope that this was helpful.
It is, but they're out there.
Yeah, they are. Just got to do some searching and some initial research. And also, we didn't mention this, but if you're looking for a specific piece of land and have a specific use in mind, there are land planners that you can hire that will help you through that process and confirm usage before you buy. And sometimes if you don't have a lot of time to do the research on your own, that could be a really great option.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us today. If you have a real estate question you'd like for us to answer, all of our contact information is in the show notes. If you aren't in the Austin area and need to be connected with a real estate professional where you are, we can help with that too. So send us a message.
We're located in the Austin area and licensed in Texas under Realty Austin. While some of this information could apply to where you live, be sure and talk to a local agent in your area. Visit the show notes for more information and additional disclosures.